Good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. Today, we're doing our first webinar week. We've got 1099 processing for this tax year with Sage 100, and I'm Karen Roberson. For those of you who don't know me yet, I have been with Oasis for 30 years now, working with Sage 100 all of that time, and I've been working with ERP softwares in general for, I think I'm over 40 years now. So thank you for joining us today, and you will notice I've got everybody muted, and if anybody has any questions throughout the presentation, down for most of you, there's going to be a bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and it says Q&A. If you type a question in there, I'll try to keep an eye on that and answer questions as we go along. And then, if there's any left at the end of the presentation, I'll try to address those. And if there are any we don't get to or any I don't have the answers to, then I can always get back with you about that. Okay, so a few other housekeeping things. We are recording this, and after the presentation, we'll be sending out an email with a link to the recording. And what we're going to do today is I have a PowerPoint that does have some useful information. We'll go through some of that, and then I'll exit the PowerPoint, and then we'll go into Sage 100, and I'll show you some information related to 1099s and the vendors there. Then I have some additional information. We'll go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so again, I thank everybody for attending today, and I am going to turn off my video because the way the screens are positioned, just be seeing the top of my head. So next page. So we're going to start off, we're going to talk about some of the changes to the 1099 forms, Sage 100 updates, and then we're going to get into Sage 100 and talk about the 1099 vendor history and actually printing the 1099 forms and requirements for the forms. So what is required to process 1099s from Sage 100? So you must be on at least version 2020, which is also known as 6.2 of your Sage 100. In the past, older versions of Sage 100 that weren't supported could still run Atrix, and that will no longer be the case. But if you are on version 2020, there is a program fix that's required. Otherwise, when you try to process the 1099s, you'll get an error message. So later in the presentation, I'll be giving some specific information about how you can contact us if you either need assistance if you're on version 2020 to get that program fix installed, or if you're on an older version and need to look at what kind of options you have for processing your 1099s this year. So the supported versions are the most recent, which is version 2023, which is also known as 7.2, version 2022, which is also known as 7.1, and 2021 product update 3, which is also known as 7.00.3. So for both versions 2022 and 2023, any product update you have will work fine. If you are on version 2021, you should have at least product update 3. And if you processed your 1099s in Sage 100 last year, we should have gotten that installed for you. So you should be good to go on that. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, even though 2020 is not supported, if you install a program fix, you can generate your 1099s out of Atrix. Okay, and you'll notice down at the very bottom, it says IRD. There will not be one this year. Most years, there are changes that require something to the programming in order to get the information processed inside Sage 100 and transferred to the Atrix processing. But we don't have one this year. So that is good news. Yay. Okay, so then the most recent changes to the 1099 forms. Well, technically, the forms themselves, there was not any changes. So that's one good reason that there were no programming changes required. But what did happen is the IRS has changed the threshold that they're using for determining who needs to file electronically. So inside Atrix, Atrix is a third-party software, and Sage 100 is one of many software companies that partner with Atrix. So Sage 100 information comes out, and then it pushes it into Atrix. And then once we get into Atrix, and I'll go through this again once we're looking at the actual product, that information is provided in Atrix, and at that point, you have an option of either printing your forms yourself, or you can do electronic filing. You could, one of the, again, we'll go through some of the screens, and you'll see what some of this means. But you have options of printing your forms and mailing them to your vendors. And then you could have Atrix do the e-filing if you're required to do the e-filing. And even if you're not required to do the e-filing, you could still choose to let Atrix do that e-filing for you. Okay, so the biggest change this year is the fact that in the past, you didn't have to e-file if you had less than 250 forms. This year, that has changed. If you've got 10 forms, and that's not just 1099 forms, that there is a whole list of different forms that fall under these requirements. But if you have more than 10, then you have to e-file. And you'll see at the bottom, there is a link to irs.gov that gives information specifically about this. So when you get the link to this recording, you'll be able to get that. So you'll see I've specifically said if you've got 10 W-2s and you have 1099s, then you will have to e-file. So if you have 5 W-2s and 6 1099s, you will have to e-file. All right, and then another note, something that there's a lot of information out there about. It was real hard to find information on this year's 1099s because the 1099Ks took up all the news space. So Sage 100 doesn't do 1099Ks, but I did want to put a little note out here, and because I'm sure some of you will see this. There was supposed to be a change to that this year, and the 1099Ks have to do with people who sell online, and there was supposed to be a change this year that a $600 minimum was going to be the new threshold, and they have pushed that back. So there will be some changes in 2024, but not this year. All right, we'll go to the next page. So in Atrix, the only thing that we're going to really notice that is different, and again, when we get into looking at the live program, I'll go through and you'll be able to see it maybe a little bit better. But you'll see line 2, how that's in red. We've got the last name and the first name. So line 2, that is somebody who was set up as an individual and not as a business. And Atrix is requiring that we take their first name and last name and fill them in. As of today, I was looking to see if there was going to be anything that would make that a little simpler so we didn't have to just type it in for each one. And so far, I haven't seen anything. So we'll see if later in the month, if Sage or Atrix comes up with anything that might make that a little less painful for those of you who have a lot of 1099s. Going to the next page. So requirements for the 1099 processing. So anybody who's processing Atrix, there is a workstation install that has to be performed. So, maybe you got a new computer this year. So if we did not get Atrix installed already, that is something we'll have to do. And depending on your security settings, we may need assistance from your IT because we do have to have administrative rights on that install. And okay. And you must be current on your software maintenance plan with Sage. And you must have an active internet connection. It does require that. And if you are new to processing 1099s or maybe new to Sage 100 this year, there are some options in accounts payable. So you have to make sure that you've designated that you're going to capture 1099 information, and then you have to set up your vendors with that information. So again, we will talk a little more about that, and I'll show you information specific to it. And we are going to do that right now. So let's hop into Sage 100 and take a quick look. I don't see any questions. Just a reminder, down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, for most of you, some of you have moved it to a different place, but there is a button for Q&A. If you have any questions, just type it in there, and I will try to keep an eye on that and answer those as we go. My Sage 100. All right, so one thing I wanted to show you, if you don't know what version of Sage you are running, when you're at the menu, if you go up to File and click on Run, at the program name, type in an asterisk, info, and then click OK. This will show me. So I can see my system version is 7.10.3.0. And I know that's within the requirements. And if we installed your Sage 100 within that path, we typically have the version as a part of that path name too. So I know that was 2022. Okay, and then let's go into vendor maintenance. I'm going to pull up a vendor was designated. Let's see, this one. So in vendor maintenance on tab 2, we designate the 1099 information. So your vendor type, you have to designate that they're either a business or they're an individual. And then you have to define their default form. Is it a miscellaneous, interest, dividend, or non-employee comp, also known as the NEC form? These are the only four that Sage 100 produces. And then based on whether they're a business or an individual, this will be either Social Security number or taxpayer ID number. And then you should enter the default box number. And then if they have a doing business as, also called DBA name, that is different, you can include that here, and that will print on the W-2 along with their optional address. If this is blank, then it will use the address that's over here on the main tab. You don't have to fill this in unless it's something different. And then we also have a button here, payer made direct sales of $5,000 plus. If that's the case, then you check that box so it'll print on the 1099. Electronic consent signed. So if you're going to have a 1099 form emailed to a vendor, then you have to get an electronic signature from them saying that they have requested that. So once you get that approval, you can click that checkbox, and then during the 1099 processing, it will recognize, hey, you don't need to print and send them a 1099 form. It can be emailed. And then the FATCA, that is Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. So if you've got somebody who falls into that and that needs to be checked on the 1099 form, you click that box. All right. So if you want to see what's been recorded, there's a button down here in the bottom right, your 1099 history. And that came on my other screen, so I'll move that here. So this shows me on this particular vendor, we've had $12,000 worth of payments that have been recorded for 2023. And let me get a different one here, show a little bit different. So this one's an individual. They've been set up with a miscellaneous form. And see here, we do have a different address that's been typed in for them. And on their 1099 history, we see that in box 1, we're going to get $12,500 worth of rent. Now, let's take a step back here. If you've not processed 1099s in Sage 100 before, then in the setup menu in the accounts payable options, there's a checkbox here. So that's the first thing you have to do, is make sure that that is turned on and that it is set to the correct 1099 calendar year. And if any of you need any assistance with any of this, again, the end of this presentation, I'll give you some email addresses where you can send in a request for assistance. Now, let's say that you back to vendor maintenance and pull up somebody who has not been set up for 1099s. You know, not unusual throughout the year, you have somebody that gets set up, they get paid, and then you get the information back and find, oh, you should have set them up as a 1099 vendor. So then you have to come back and designate, you know, which are they business individual, their form, get their ID number, which box is the information going to go into. And then what you have to do is find out what kind of payments you've already made this year. So this case, I've got somebody, we've got $413 in payments this year. That's under the $600 threshold, but still a good idea. Year's not over. You might have another payment. So you can use that screen. There's also a payment history report I'll show you in a moment that you can get a list of all your 1099 vendors. And then I do have the option on the 1099 history to manually enter the amounts here. So I can enter that $413.13. And that is okay. That, you know, you don't want to wait till the last minute. So go ahead, review now your 1099 vendors, make sure everybody's been set up right. And let me at this point show you there is a payment history report. So in accounts payable, I'm in the reports menu, payment history report. Typically, you want to make sure you get all types of payments and make sure you choose the right fiscal year and get everything for the whole year. And then there's a nice little option here, print 1099 vendors only. So this will go back through all of your check history. And for any vendor that you have designated as a 1099 vendor, get a list of all of their payments. And I have some demo data. So that demo data doesn't always match up and reconcile really well. I don't have a whole lot of check history here, but that does show one particular vendor that's a 1099 vendor. Let's see if we have any questions yet. I hope this is helping everybody. All right, so then let's go take a look at the 1099 tax reporting. So again, in accounts payable reports menu, we have form 1099 tax reporting. So I kind of get it drummed into my head. There are 3 things I have to make sure that I do before I generate this. One of those is I have to make sure that I pick the right form type. So make sure I've got my I'm going to start with my miscellaneous forms. And I double check my year. I make sure I've got the right calendar year that I'm pulling for. And then I have to go to my minimum year to date. So for our demonstration purposes, I'm not going to put in a minimum. You know, we've got, you know, like this, the rent would be $600 if I was doing this for real. So all of this pulls from your company maintenance, so you shouldn't have to do anything different here. It should all be fine. And then I accept. And what's happening now is Sage is going and it's gathering the information from your Sage 100 files. And it's transferring that information over to Atrix. So at this point, this is Atrix running. If I've not done the Atrix workstation setup, then I can't get this far. So I'm also going to point out very shortly, Atrix will be starting to push out updates. And you know, you might not have updates every day, but at least every week there are updates that get pushed through, because these this is not just 1099 W-2s get processed through Atrix also. So even if there's no update related to the 1099s, there may be W-2 changes that get pushed out. And that includes not just federal information, but your state and your localities. So I know many of you have to deal with local taxes, so you know what I'm talking about there. That can get quite intricate, and there can be frequent updates. So anyway, my point being, you may run this today and you may have an update you need to install, and then come back and run it again next week, and there may be another update, and it steps you through it. You may, depending on how tight your security is on your computers, you may need to get assistance from your IT department with that, and we can always help also. Okay, so I'm not going to read all of these, so I'm just telling it here. I'm going through the setup wizard, and I'm going to say I'm doing them for real. But you might notice that you do have an option that you can test drive, and that's perfectly okay. So again, this is going to come from your company maintenance. Shouldn't have to do anything here. Just verify it's accurate. And I'm just doing a single entity. And so this is payer information that gets included with the e-filing. So notice I click next, and it's not letting me go until I fill out some information. So I got to put in my name. Click next again and see what it says. Oh, I got to have my email also, so I'll put that in. And this time it's taking me through. So I'm filing for my employer or my company. And if you have any states that require filing, I do not recall which states might require them. It's been a while since I've had anybody that needed those, but they would be listed, or you can add them and then you have an account number with them. Again, if you do have that requirement, we can assist you with that. Do next. And if I had anybody that was going to get it electronically, I'd have to make sure I indicate that. And then this is just how their ID numbers are going to print, if they're going to be, masked out or entire. So it is, nope, I wasn't fast enough. Oh, get this up here on this screen. So this is Atrix. So we are outside of Sage 100 right now. All that information has been transferred. And this takes us through a nice little wizard here. So this blue section up here is telling you verify your recipient taxpayer identification numbers. So it's highlighted in blue here. I can also, while I'm doing these verifications, change my grid so that way I'm seeing a little more information. And then once I've verified I've got everybody, and you'll notice here I'm missing one, so it is going to yell at me about that. So let me just put something in here. I want to next. So now it's telling me verify that my check if FEIN. So what that means is if this is a business, that box needs to be checked. So this is a good opportunity to review your vendors here and make sure you've designated them properly as either an individual or a business. I'm going to do next. And then this is what I showed you a screenshot of in the PowerPoint. So over here for you. So this is in red because it's saying please complete or correct the required red fields. And then this is telling me what the problem is. The recipient first and last name is required when basically when it's an individual. So what I need to do is go back and correct. And again, so far, we do not have a way of getting this to programmatically fill in. You're going to have to put these in individually. And just a heads up, don't use periods or dashes or any special characters. Just use your letters because it will flag those also. Okay, so I'm going to do next. And now it's telling me to review their names, make sure all of that is accurate. And it's really nice that you just keep going through the wizard and it helps you. So see, invalid characters detected in name. So I have to go, and I told it that it could correct it. So it removed that period from the Roger W. learner that was there. Right. And now I'm verifying their addresses. And at this point, I'm just going to flip through these. It just takes you through each step. I want to get to this part. So Atrix does allow you to do the printing of the forms yourself, but again, you have to e-file if you're going to produce 10 or more forms, not just 1099 forms, but that includes your W-2 forms and another list of different forms that they've got. And quite honestly, for most of our clients, we have found that it is cheaper to let Atrix print and mail those forms and let them do the e-filing than it is for you to go out and buy the forms and pay for the postage to mail them yourself. Now, that's not true for everybody, but for a lot of our clients, it is cheaper. So I know it can be a little intimidating the first time you do it, but I tell you, every year we get more and more clients to do this, and they're like, I wish we had done this before. Because we're just talking about, the hard and fast costs. That doesn't even include the soft cost of your time and effort to get those forms, get them printed, stuff the envelopes, get the address labels, and get them mailed out. It just, if you aren't already, you really need to consider letting Atrix not only do the e-filing, but also print and mail them for you. So that's what this is telling you right here. So it's letting you know you can do. And then it tells you what that cost will be. So, I just had those 3 forms. So there's a minimum cost of $24.95. So there is a per form cost of $2.60. So if that was all we were going with, then it would have just been $7.80. But again, there's a minimum cost of the $24.95. Now, you will have to set up an account with Atrix, and all through these wizards, it gives you the opportunity to do that on the fly. And when we get back to our PowerPoint, I have a link on that also that you can use to set it up ahead of time. Now, what you can do, and many people do, is they like to do a dry run first. So they'll say, all right, I just want to print my recipient 1099 copies. So they'll click off these e-file options. So instead of doing the complete 1099 e-filing service, I came down here and chose other options and said, just print my recipient 1099 copies. And just double check here, make sure your total cost is 0. And if I want, I could also print my 1099s and 1096. So regardless, you can, you can still print, even if you're letting them do all the printing and e-filing and everything, you can still print a copy for yourself. All right, so let's do next. And so this is just another sales ploy, if you will, that, hey, you know, are you sure you don't want to take advantage of e-filing? Since we're just doing a run through here, I'm going to say no. And this is just letting me know that, you know, hey, I checked the box to do some state filing. And then this is what I have selected to print. And it is generating the actual forms now. So at this point, it's going to come up with the actual forms, and you have the option of printing them. You can print them to PDF. You can and then save them that way, or you could just print them to plain paper. And like I said, many of our clients will do a dry run of this and use that to double check, compare to the payment history. It's just an easy way of making sure that you're going to be ready to print those 1099s when it's time. So here it's telling me, okay, if I'm printing them, then I need to put in the official red federal paper. So I would do that, and then I could tell it to print to PDF, or I could actually pick a printer. I'm just going to need to print it. And it's telling me here, report 1 of 7. This is the federal 1099 miscellaneous. Once I've done what I wanted with that one, I click next step, and then it takes me to report 2 of 7, my federal 1096. So you just keep going along, and it steps you through all of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. Well, actually, let me double check. Make sure I didn't miss anything that I wanted to talk to you about. Well, looks like I got it all. So I'm going to cancel those reports. And because I did not finish, it brings me back to this. And I'm going to close out of that. And when I do that, I have the option of saving this as a work in progress so that it knows we're not complete. I'm going to say, no, I don't want to save that as a work in progress. So what that means is when I start it again, it's going to ask me, well, it's going to start from scratch. I'm going to have to answer all those questions again that went through the wizard. And then you get asked this question each time you exit. Do you want to increment the default 1099 calendar year in the accounts payable options window? So if you're done for the year, you don't have anything else you plan on doing, you can say yes, but I'm not done, so I'm going to say no, and I'll show you what that means. If I had said yes, this would have been changed to 2024. And what that means is whenever, like if I'm doing my tax reporting, or if I'm in the vendor screen on looking at the 1099 history, it's going to default the year according to what was in those accounts payable setup options. And then I did also want to remind you that if you have the 1099 miscellaneous forms and non-employee compensation, you have to go through this twice. And also if you have dividend and interest, I know a lot of people don't use those, but most people need a miscellaneous form and a non-employee compensation. So you do have to generate that twice. And I also, well, actually, I'm going to bring that up in a moment. Let me go back to our PowerPoint. Some additional information. So these some frequently asked questions. Do we have to e-file to use Atrix? So the answer to that is no. You can use Atrix just to print the forms. And even if you do have a need to do the e-filing, the IRS has some options that you can use to submit the information online without having to pay any fees. And if you do e-file through Atrix, there are some processing fees. But again, you really should consider it, because for the majority of you, it will be cheaper to let Atrix do the printing and mailing of the forms and the e-filing than it is for you to purchase your own forms. Okay, and here's that magic place if you want to go ahead. If you don't already have an account with Atrix, you can enroll at efile.atrix.com, and that is AATRIX. So the fee schedule, I'm not even going to try to approximate what that would be, but as we saw in our little run through, there's a minimum of $24.95. So I have another link here where you can get what your fees are. And if you have a lot of forms that you're going to be generating, Atrix will negotiate with you for a better price. So I'll put that out there for you. And so again, a lot of our clients are now using Atrix. Take care of everything for them. It's less costly and a lot less labor intensive and a lot less headache. Okay, so what type of forms do I need to order? If you are going to print your forms, you be careful. You can get them from the, any office supply store. I really, really recommend that you use sagechecks.com, because that helps you get the right forms. And they're reasonably priced. So, we don't get any kickbacks. That's not why I'm saying that. I just know from experience that just makes life a little easier, because there are people who've gone and picked up forms at the office supply store and it turns out to be the wrong forms. So you go back to what we've got up there in red. You need the blank perforated 4-up packets, and that does include the red federal copy. And then you need the blank perforated copy for your vendors. And then some of those packets do include the envelopes. And just a reminder that if you are buying forms, you probably need the 1099 miscellaneous and the 1099 NEC forms. Most people need both. All right. So a lot more information here. I am not going to read through all of this. It's, like the fine print that we always get. When you get the link to the recording, if you need any of this information, it will be there, because if I try to read this, I'll put you all to sleep. I know I would. But remember that even if you do have, sign on to have Atrix print them and send them to your vendors, you still have that option to print a copy for yourself. Okay, so everybody should have gotten probably a couple of emails already. We've been doing this for quite a while now. We've gotten down to pretty good science. You should have gotten the emails asking you to set up an appointment with us ahead of time. We do ask that you do this because, you've got a lot of people who, the last week of December, first week of January, they want to get it all done. We can't get everybody in that time frame. So we do ask that you answer that email with your request. We do our best to schedule you with your preferred day. but based on the availability of our consultants, you may not get it exactly when you want. And you don't have to worry about getting the 1099s done before you start processing 2024. Sage 100 takes care of that. You're fine. It keeps track of what year those will go into when you do your payments. And on that appointment request, we need your company name, your name, email, phone number, and then we've requested here that what version of Sage 100, because if we see that you've got an older version, we know that you might need we might need to take care of some things sooner rather than later. And then there's the reminder of how to get that version. And then we ask some different questions just so we know before we call you, how much time we might expect to need to schedule with you. So again, all that's on the emailer. If for some reason you did not get an email, maybe we've got somebody else set up as the contact, you can just email tech support at oasisky.com, and then we can send you the link so you can request that appointment. Or I know a lot of you've got specific consultants you work with a lot. It's okay to email one of us individually, and then we'll just forward it on for you. So you'll get that information. And this year, the way the holidays fall, we'll just be closed on those Mondays, December 25th and January 1st. And just a reminder that we do schedule these appointments first come, first serve. And then if you need any assistance, like if you're on an older version and you might need to look at alternatives, again, you can email tech support at oasisky.com and somebody will get back with you so that we can make those arrangements. And let's see, I think that is it.